Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Me? Well, it's been quite the start to the day. At first, I had to take my wife and daughter to the airport. Then I dashed back to live stream a Bobcat product launch just about an hour or so ago. And while all that was going on, I was pulling together today's show, or the content for today's show. And so forgive me if I seem even more confused than usual. And all of that is on top of an hour and a half of racquetball last night. So my right arm basically isn't working today. Now, our question of the day actually comes from a viewer who says that his company, apparently in accordance with NFDC standards, allows him just £35 per night for accommodation. But he says he's now struggling to find accommodation for that price. Operators out there that are paid subsistence, I'd love to get your thoughts on all that. So without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I'm your host, Mark Anthony. It is Wednesday, the 21st of September, at least I think it is. Maybe. And as that remarkably persistent guy just said, welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, the UK demolition industry rather, says goodbye to one of its shining stars. The embodied carbon lobby is gathering momentum, regardless of what the industry's Flat Earth Society would have you believe. Bauma 2022 will see the rise of the robots. Plus, we're taking a look at a new wheelie from Wacker. We'll get to all of that in just a second. But first, let's see who among the rich and the shameless will be celebrating a birthday on this day of days. Happy birthday! And it's many happy returns to Francis Hopkinson. Who is Francis Hopkinson, I hear you cry? He's actually the man who designed the first ever American flag. Who knew? Also, happy birthday to War of the Worlds author H.G. Wells, to actor Larry Hagman, a man forever famous as J.R. Ewing from Dallas, to happy-go-lucky singer and songwriter Leonard Cohen, comedian Bill Murray, and to Motorhead drummer Phil Taylor, known to the world as Phil the Animal, to singers Faith Hill and Liam Gallagher, actress Ricki Lake, and to West Indies cricketer Chris Gale. But far, 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 far more importantly, today marks the birthday of a man who has been scaring the bejesus out of me since I was a child. The author of The Shining, Carrie, It, Pet Sematary, The Green Mile, The Shawshank Redemption, and my personal favourite, the Breathing Method novella from the Different Seasons collection. My favourite author, Mr. Stephen King. Many happy returns to them, one and all. The UK demolition industry has been paying tribute to Bradley Demolition founder Paul Johnson, who sadly passed away this past weekend. That's Paul on the left there, with Sean Heron from Worsley Plant, Paul being the taller of the two. Mark Bryant at JBV Demolition said the industry had lost one of its shining stars, and there was certainly no question that Paul was a man of conviction and great intelligence. I spoke to him earlier this year about the environmental challenges facing the demolition industry. That conversation was supposed to be the precursor to a recorded interview, so the camera and the microphone wasn't running at the time, which is a terrible shame, because he demonstrated more passion and commitment to the environment in that conversation than most people can muster in an entire career. Of course, there was no such thing as a quick chat with Paul. He was not content merely to react to legislation surrounding environmental matters. He'd researched the subject extensively to the point that he was totally immersed within it. Sadly, very sadly, that interview was never to take place. Paul had suffered a couple of heart attacks and had also apparently endured a heart bypass operation, although when I spoke to him last, he seemed to be well on his way to recovery. Paul resigned, you may recall, Paul resigned as chairman of the NFDC's Northwest region around the same time that David Keane and David Darcy walked away from the NFDC as well. The spin at that time was that Paul had stepped away purely because of ill health, but having spoken to him shortly afterwards, I know there was more to the story than that. But now isn't the time for that. Paul Johnson unquestionably made his mark on the UK demolition industry, and the sector is considerably poorer for his passing. Our thoughts are with his family, his friends, and his colleagues at this time. Here's a weird thought, possibly because I ate cheese yesterday. Imagine that robotics really take off in the field of demolition and construction equipment. Would the Bauma of the future be a human-free zone with robots looking at other robots? Probably not, but either way, the robots will be out in force at Bauma 2022.
We build the same way our grandparents did, with our own two hands. But the tools in our hands change. Built Robotics has developed the most advanced tool available on any job site today, the Exosystem. It transforms any excavator into a fully autonomous robot made to dig the earth. It's powered by a liquid-cooled computer, the sub-centimeter RTK GPS, high-efficiency solar panels, an all-weather, all-terrain design. And you can easily switch from manual to AI mode with a flick of a switch. But most importantly, it can dig. Does the idea of an 80,000-pound robot scare you a little? You'd be crazy if it didn't. That's why we've developed an 8-layer safety system with 360-degree camera coverage, proximity radar, 110 decibel safety alarms, ultra-bright LEDs, high-vis barriers, a digital geofence, and hardwired and wireless emergency stops. Because when it comes to safety, more is more. We're here because of the builders who came before us. They created the world we live in, our roads, our cities, our homes. And when they needed a tool to overcome a new challenge, they invented it. Now, it's our turn.
Now, just before we move on from all things Bauma related, the fine folks at Dynaset have set a date for a pre-Bauma new product launch.
Welcome to the Dynaset product launch event, 2 p.m. Eastern European Time on 6th of October. This 30-minute live show presents 2 new Dynaset hydraulic equipment and 3 new and developed product series. With me, there will be Dynaset Technical Director Timo Nieminen and Area Sales Manager Samuli Vornanen. So keep up with the future and join the event. No sign-up is needed, but you can subscribe our event reminders from the subscription. See you at the show.
Now, I've marked that in my diary, and I'll bring you all the details just as soon as they're available. But if you'd like to join the launch yourself, you can do so via the Dynaset YouTube channel. I've just posted a link to that in the chat. Now, speaking of the chat, a couple of things. Our question of the day, is £35 enough for hotel accommodation in this modern day and age for subsistence allowance? And apparently, not so much. Gary Muirhead, definitely not. For £35, you have to get digs, something for your breakfast, lunch and dinner, and fuel from the digs to the site and back. My mate's getting £75 per night, which is more like it. It then goes on, let me see, I've got another one here somewhere. Ken Hatcher responded to this. There we are. Not sure every hotel I stay at costs over £100. So £35 does appear to be lagging behind the trend somewhat. Now, just on another subject, if anybody is in the south of England, or more specifically around the Sussex area, our friend Neil Edwards is speaking tomorrow in public at the South East Construction Expo around noon. question and answers with refreshments. I go anywhere for refreshments pretty much. You might even see me talking about all things construction. There's the link for the event. It's the constructionexpouk.co.uk, and the event takes place tomorrow at it takes place all day tomorrow, but it is down in Crawley Way, I think. But if you go to www.constructionexpouk.co.uk, I'm sure you'll find many more details there. And I'm fairly sure, I'm not absolutely positive, but I'm fairly sure that our old friend Katie Cranes from Instagram and various other places is also one of the speakers there. I may be wrong, but I'm fairly sure that's the case. Now, back to this. They are the demolition equivalent of the Flat Earth Society. The naysayers that refuse to acknowledge the evidence of their own eyes and the opinions of those that are far more knowledgeable. First, they claimed that the Competition and Markets Authority investigation was a storm in a teacup, that it was nothing to worry about, that there was no case to answer. Yet the CMA investigation blew up and left the industry with about 1,000 chickens worth of egg on its face. Those same naysayers had much the same reaction to suggestions that demolition could be impacted by the need to protect the embodied carbon contained within the nation's building stocks. It's just the loony liberals and preservationists, they claimed. It will blow over and amount to nothing, they assured us. This is just Sadiq Khan stroking his ego, they insisted. They were wrong about the CMA, and it looks increasingly likely that they will be wrong about the embodied carbon issue too, because a leading Scottish architect has called for an investigation into the proposed demolition of 4 tower blocks in Glasgow. Last December, residents of Winford Estate were informed that the tower blocks, which had switched from Landlords Cube Housing Association to Glasgow Housing Association, were soon to be consigned to the history books. The 600 flats would be demolished to make way for 300 new energy-efficient, affordable homes under a £54 million project. However, Professor Alan Dunlop says that these plans Professor Alan Dunlop says that these plans fly in the face of a national strategy among architects to retrofit rather than to demolish. I thought Glasgow had changed its attitude towards its tower blocks, says Professor Dunlop. The city has knocked down close to half of its tower blocks. Then there was a change in attitude. They would try and retrofit them and upgrade, and I think that's been successful. Winford residents got in touch with me as I've been involved in doing a building study for Cedar Court. They had been planned for demolition for some time, as it was thought there was nothing that could be done with them. But they were retrofitted. Insulation was added, the soundproofing inside improved, and what were balconies were turned into enclosures, winter gardens, and that's also been successful. Professor Dunlop described the demolition. Let me try that again. Professor Dunlop described the tower blocks that are earmarked for demolition as stunning. I can't think of a similar site of such quality anywhere in Glasgow. It is south-facing, it borders right onto the River Kelvin and is on the edge of a high-quality residential area, he adds. They have historic importance, all of which is potentially bad news for any demolition company eyeing the prospect of some high-rise and high-profile demolition. And bizarrely, it also potentially bad news for Winford residents too. A Wheatley Home Glasgow spokesperson said tenants in Winford overwhelmingly support the plans to demolish these flats and for the £54 million to be invested in their community. An 8-week consultation saw 85% of Winford tenants back the regeneration plans, with 87% of tenants living in the 4 blocks earmarked for demolition also supporting the proposals. Preservation may go against the wishes of residents, and retrofitting might go against the wishes of demolition contractors. But rest assured, the embodied carbon lobby is gathering pace, no matter what the flat earthers will have you believe.
The Miller GT series heralds a new era of unrivaled power and cutting-edge intelligent coupler technology, increasing job site safety, machine versatility, and productivity. It's the added versatility that you need at the value you can afford. To find out more, visit millergroundbreaking.com.
Just to clarify, I mentioned this expo that is taking place down Crawley Way tomorrow, and Katie Keller is going to be there. So go along, go and see Katie, go and see Neil Edwards, say hi to both of them, and send them my very best regards. Now, it has stood on the banks of the heartburn. Stood on the banks of the City Ship Canal in Buffalo, New York, since it was completed in 1897. With a capacity of almost 3 million bushels, that's 106,000 cubic meters in new money, it was the largest grain elevator the world had ever seen. It was also one of the first to run on electricity. But the demolition of the famous Great Northern Elevator is now underway.
Day of demolition arrived today for the Great Northern Grain Elevator on Buffalo's waterfront. Wrecking crews started tearing it down less than 24 hours after a judge finally cleared the way for them to start. Channel 2's Dave McKinley has been watching throughout the day and joins us live now from Ganson Street with more on what's going on there. Hi, Dave.
Hi there, Kate. You know, Archer Daniels Midland, which owns this building, which actually hasn't functioned as a grain elevator for 40 years, has rejected at least one offer from a developer to buy it and another by preservationists to take over the building and at least maintain it. Barring any more legal intervention, it's going to take several months to tear it down. So far, it's primarily being done with a single piece of equipment, a large mechanical arm with a pinching claw on the end of it, reaching through the gaping hole left as a result of a windstorm last December. It tears off sections of welded steel from the former grain silos within. Taking it all in, and with much displeasure, preservationists who fought a protracted yet unsuccessful legal battle to keep this from taking place, but they've not yet given up and hope to take another crack at things in court.
The Common Council created this as a landmark in 1990. That means that there's a public interest in preserving these buildings. Special effort must be made. No effort was made to save this. In fact, the city rushed to judgment, panicked, and issued an emergency demolition order, which is what ADM has wanted for 30 years.
ADM sought that emergency demolition, saying the building was dangerous after the windstorm blew out a large section of its northern wall. Preservationists who contested that pointed out today that some 10 months later, it somehow never fell down, and still hasn't, despite the deconstruction that occurred today. Of course, even if they get another judge to intervene and halt the demolition, their desire to save it and restore it, how realistic is that now? Is it totally out of the question for them to undo the damage that's already been done today? They say you'd be surprised. We'll talk more about that coming up at 5. Reporting live on Ganson Street, Dave McKinley, Channel 2 News.
Looking forward to it, Dave. Thank you.
As much as I love demolition, it's always tinged with sadness when such a historic building comes down. Okay, before we sign off for the day, a rubber duck enthusiast, stand by. Those fine folks at Wacker have something new to show you. Yeah, some of you have said in the chat, it does look a very smart machine. I'm hoping to get to see that up close at Bauma next month, but I can almost guarantee that my son will, because my son is actually doing some work with the fine folks at Wacker. So watch this space.
Sorry to interrupt the guy with the funny glasses, but if you're enjoying this video, please hit the like button as it helps our channel. Or, better still, share this video with a friend or a colleague. Thank you. Right, back to Beardy.
Right, that pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. But before I love you and leave you, yesterday we brought you a snapshot of the Vintage Excavator Trust event up in Cumbria that was captured by our friend Peter Ferguson this past weekend. Well, as promised, I took a bit of time out yesterday, and there is now a full-length 13-minute film available on our YouTube channel. If you'd like to take a trip down memory lane and look at some of the plant of the past, just use the link I've just posted in the chat. Now, I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. And there's a lot to get through, so please try and stick around. If you can't stick around, obviously, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Have a great day, and thanks for watching. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I'll see you after this.